I didn't know the divorce hearing would end with my husband being escorted to a holding cell before the judge even signed the papers. My name is Natalie Kim, and for 8 months I believed we'd lost everything to faceless criminals on the internet when the real thief was sleeping next to me every night. Julian came home that Tuesday in March looking devastated. Actually devastated, not the performance version I'd later recognize. His face was gray, his hands shaking. He could barely get the words out. Our Bitcoin savings, the portfolio we'd been building for 6 years, was gone, hacked, stolen, vanished into the digital void. I remember the exact moment he told me. I was chopping vegetables for dinner and the knife slipped, cut my thumb. Blood on the cutting board mixing with the onions, and Julian standing there saying $240,000 had disappeared. We'd put everything into crypto. It was Julian's idea originally, back in 2017, when Bitcoin was still under 10,000. He worked in fintech consulting, understood blockchain, convinced me it was the future. I trusted him because he was smart about money, careful, methodical. We cashed out my 401k, sold the rental property I'd inherited from my father, moved it all into Bitcoin and Ethereum, watched it grow. By early 2023, our portfolio was worth nearly $250,000. Our future, our security, the down payment on a house we'd been planning to buy. Gone, Julian said. All of it. He showed me his laptop, the empty wallet, transaction records showing the coins moving out in the middle of the night. He said he didn't understand how it happened, that he'd had two-factor authentication, cold storage, all the security measures. Someone had gotten in anyway. He filed a police report that night. I watched him on the phone with the cybercrimes division, his voice breaking. He held me while I cried, and he cried too. I felt his shoulders shake. I thought we were grieving together. The police said there was almost nothing they could do. Cryptocurrency theft is nearly impossible to recover. The coins move through mixers and tumblers, get converted and reconverted, disappear into wallets all over the world. The detective assigned to our case was kind but blunt. We'd probably never see that money again. Julian accepted this with what I thought was brave resignation. He kept apologizing, kept saying he should have been more careful, should have protected us better. I told him it wasn't his fault, that we'd rebuild. We were young, we had time, we'd be okay. Except we weren't okay. Julian changed after the hack. He became distant, irritable, started working longer hours, coming home late. When I suggested we talk to a financial advisor about starting over, he snapped at me, said he couldn't think about money right now, that the loss was too raw. I gave him space. I understood trauma. I was traumatized too. Every time I thought about my father's rental property, the one he'd worked 2 jobs to buy, the one I'd liquidated and poured into Bitcoin because Julian convinced me it was smart, I felt physically sick. But Julian's grief looked different than mine. He wasn't sad. He was anxious, jumpy. He started password protecting everything, his laptop, his phone, even his tablet. When I asked why, he said he was being more security conscious after the hack. It made sense. It also made me uneasy in a way I couldn't articulate. Then in July, 4 months after the supposed hack, I found the receipt. It was in Julian's gym bag, crumpled at the bottom under his water bottle, a receipt from a high-end electronics store for something called a Ledger Nano X. Purchase date, 2 weeks after our Bitcoin was stolen. Price, $149. I stood in our bedroom holding this piece of paper, my brain trying to make it make sense. A ledger was a hardware wallet for cryptocurrency. Why would Julian buy a new crypto wallet 2 weeks after losing everything? What would he even put in it? We had nothing left. I went online and searched for his name and ledger. Nothing. Searched our credit card statements. The purchase wasn't there, which meant he'd paid cash, which meant he didn't want me to know about it. My hands started shaking the same way they'd shaken the night he told me we'd been hacked. I put the receipt back exactly where I'd found it, and I didn't say anything. Not because I was scared, because I needed to know more before I confronted him with something I didn't understand. I called my brother that night. Austin was a cybersecurity analyst for a major tech company, the person everyone in our family went to when their computer got weird or their phone got hacked. I trusted him completely. I told him everything: the hack, the police report, the empty wallet, the receipt for the ledger. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Austin said something that made my stomach drop. He said cryptocurrency doesn't actually disappear, that blockchain is a permanent public ledger, that every transaction is traceable, that if our coins had really been stolen by an outside hacker, there would be a trail, and that trail would tell us exactly where the money went. Could he trace it? I asked. Could he follow our Bitcoin and see where it ended up? Austin said yes. He said he'd need the wallet addresses, the transaction IDs, anything Julian had shown me that night in March. I had screenshots. I'd taken them when Julian showed me the empty wallet, thinking maybe we'd need them for insurance or the police or something. I sent them to Austin. He said he'd look into it and call me back. 3 days later, Austin called. His voice was tight, controlled, angry. He said he'd traced our Bitcoin through the blockchain, said the coins hadn't been hacked, they'd been transferred deliberately to a new wallet, and that new wallet had been accessed multiple times since March, small transactions moving in and out. The coins were still there, almost all of them, sitting in a wallet that someone was actively using, someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I asked him if he could tell who owned the wallet. He said not directly, blockchain is pseudonymous, but he said the pattern of activity suggested the owner was in our geographic area, based on timestamps and exchange interactions. And he said if that ledger receipt was real, if Julian had really bought a hardware wallet right after the supposed hack, there was a very good chance that ledger contained our Bitcoin, that Julian had stolen from us, from me, and staged an elaborate hack to cover it up. I sat on my bathroom floor and threw up. Then I called a divorce attorney. Her name was Monica Park, and she specialized in high-asset divorces and financial fraud. I met with her the next week while Julian thought I was at a yoga class. I showed her everything: the screenshots from the night of the hack, the police report, the receipt for the ledger, Austin's blockchain analysis. Monica listened without interrupting, taking notes, her expression getting grimmer by the minute. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said this was one of the clearest cases of asset concealment she'd seen, that if we could prove Julian had moved the Bitcoin to a wallet he controlled, we could not only get the money back in the divorce, but potentially file criminal charges for theft and fraud. But we needed proof. Hard proof. The blockchain analysis was compelling but circumstantial. We needed to find the actual ledger device. We needed to prove Julian had access to the wallet holding our coins. Monica asked if I had any idea where he might keep something like that. I thought about it. Julian had a safe in his home office, a small, fireproof box where he kept important documents and his passport. I had the combination. He'd given it to me years ago. I told Monica this, and she said we needed to look inside that safe, but carefully, legally. If we found the ledger, we couldn't just take it. We needed to document it, photograph it, preserve the chain of evidence. I went home that afternoon and waited for Julian to leave for the gym. He went every Tuesday and Thursday evening, like clockwork. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I went to his office. My heart was hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. The safe was in the bottom drawer of his desk, exactly where it had always been. I entered the combination with shaking fingers. It clicked open. Inside were the usual things: his passport, our marriage certificate, the title to his car. And underneath those papers, wrapped in a microfiber cloth, was the Ledger Nano X. I picked it up with trembling hands. It was small, maybe the size of a USB drive, black and sleek. This little device potentially held $240,000, the money Julian had told me was stolen, the money we'd grieved for, the money he'd let me believe was gone while he hid it in his office safe. I took photos, multiple angles, the ledger in the safe, the serial number visible, the ledger next to the receipt I'd found showing they matched. I didn't turn it on, didn't touch anything else, just documented everything and put it all back exactly as I'd found it. Then I sent the photos to Monica and Austin. Austin compared the ledger's serial number to purchase records from the electronics store. It matched. This was the device Julian had bought 2 weeks after the supposed hack. Monica said this was enough. We could file for divorce and subpoena the ledger, force Julian to produce it in court, force him to unlock it and show what was inside. And if he refused, if he claimed it was lost or didn't exist, we had photographs proving otherwise. Either way, we had him. I filed for divorce the following Monday. Julian was served at his office. He came home that evening looking shocked, hurt, confused, asked me what was going on. Why I was doing this. I told him I knew about the Bitcoin, that I knew he'd lied, that I knew the hack was fake. His face went white. He started to say something, stopped, started again, then he tried a different approach. Denial. He said I was crazy, that the stress of losing our savings had made me paranoid, that he would never steal from me, that he loved me. I watched him perform, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just cold certainty. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Monica filed for immediate financial disclosure, demanded Julian produce all account statements, all devices capable of holding cryptocurrency, all passwords and wallet addresses. Julian's attorney fought back, said the Bitcoin was gone, that there was nothing to disclose, that Julian had been a victim of theft just like I had, that my accusations were baseless and emotionally motivated. Then Monica subpoenaed the ledger, specifically requested that Julian produce the Ledger Nano X, serial number matching the receipt, purchased on the specific date from the specific store. Julian's attorney objected, said there was no such device, that Julian didn't own a ledger. Monica submitted the photographs, Julian in the safe, the serial number visible, the receipt. Julian's attorney went quiet. The judge ordered Julian to produce the ledger at the next hearing, said if the device existed and was in Julian's possession, failure to produce it would be considered contempt of court. The hearing was scheduled for September 15th, 6 months after the supposed hack, 6 months of Julian lying to my face every single day. I didn't see Julian much in the weeks before the hearing. He'd moved out, was staying with a friend. He tried to call me a few times, sent texts saying we needed to talk, that he could explain everything. I blocked his number. Austin kept monitoring the blockchain. The wallet holding our Bitcoin was still active. Small transactions here and there. Someone was using it. Someone was spending our money while pretending it didn't exist. The day of the hearing arrived. I sat in the courtroom next to Monica, my hands folded in my lap. Julian sat across the aisle with his attorney, looking pale and nervous. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Catherine Reeves, called the proceeding to order. She asked Julian's attorney if his client had brought the requested device. Julian's attorney stood up and said his client maintained that no such device existed, that the photographs were fabricated or misidentified, that Julian had never purchased or possessed a Ledger Nano X. Judge Reeves turned to Monica, asked if we had any additional evidence. Monica said yes. She called Austin to testify. My brother walked to the stand, calm and professional. Monica asked him to explain his credentials. Austin listed his degrees, his certifications, his years of experience in cybersecurity and blockchain analysis. Then Monica asked him to explain what he'd found when he traced our Bitcoin. Austin pulled up a presentation on the courtroom screen, showed the blockchain, the transaction history, the movement of our coins from the original wallet to a new wallet on the same day Julian claimed we were hacked, showed how the transaction was a simple transfer, not a theft, showed how the coins had remained in the new wallet for months with periodic small transactions, showed timestamps, IP addresses, exchange interactions, everything pointing to someone in our city, someone who knew what they were doing, someone actively managing the wallet. Then Austin did something brilliant. He'd brought his laptop. He asked the judge's permission to demonstrate something. Judge Reeves allowed it. Austin explained that if Julian really didn't have the ledger, if the wallet holding our Bitcoin was controlled by some unknown hacker, we should see activity on the blockchain right now, because hackers don't just let cryptocurrencies sit idle. But if Julian had the ledger, if he was controlling the wallet, we could test that. Austin pulled up the blockchain in real time, showed the wallet address holding our coins. Then he looked at Julian and said he was going to broadcast a small test transaction to that wallet, $1 worth of Bitcoin. If someone was actively monitoring the wallet, they'd see it immediately. He sent the transaction. It appeared on the blockchain within seconds. And then, less than a minute later, that same dollar in Bitcoin was transferred back out of the wallet. The courtroom went silent. Austin turned to the judge and said that response time indicated the wallet was being monitored in real time, that whoever controlled it was watching it right now, in this moment, that the only person in this room with a vested interest in monitoring that specific wallet was Julian. Judge Reeves looked at Julian, asked him directly if he had a hardware wallet in his possession. Julian hesitated. His attorney whispered something to him. Julian said no.
He didn't have it. He lost it. It was gone. Monica stood up, submitted phone records showing Julian had searched for Ledger Nano X user guides multiple times over the past 6 months, submitted credit card records showing purchases from cryptocurrency exchanges made after the supposed hack, small amounts that matched the transactions Austin had tracked, submitted security footage from Julian's apartment building showing him leaving the building with a small black bag the morning of the hearing, then returning 20 minutes later without it. Judge Reeves' expression hardened. She asked Julian one more time if he had the device. Julian said no, said he didn't know where it was. Judge Reeves leaned forward. She said she found Julian's testimony not credible, said the evidence overwhelmingly suggested he had transferred the cryptocurrency to a wallet in his control and had fabricated the story about being hacked, said his refusal to produce the device was contempt of court. She ordered him to surrender the ledger immediately or be held in custody until he complied. Julian's face went red. He started arguing, said this was unfair, that he was being accused without proof, that his privacy was being violated. His attorney tried to calm him down. Judge Reeves cut him off, said he had 2 choices: produce the device now, unlock it, demonstrate the contents, or go to jail for contempt until he changed his mind. There was a long silence. Julian looked at his attorney, at me, at the judge. I watched his face cycle through emotions: anger, fear, calculation, then resignation. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the ledger. The entire courtroom seemed to exhale at once. He'd had it on him the whole time. Judge Reeves ordered him to unlock it. Julian connected it to Austin's laptop, entered his PIN. The wallet opened. Austin pulled up the contents on the screen. $237,000 in Bitcoin and Ethereum, our entire savings, minus the small amounts Julian had been skimming off over the months. Judge Reeves stared at the screen, then at Julian. She said she was awarding me the entire cryptocurrency portfolio as part of the divorce settlement, said Julian's actions constituted fraud and theft, said she was also referring the case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution, and said Julian would remain in custody for contempt until he transferred the full contents of the wallet to an address provided by my attorney. Julian tried to argue. Judge Reeves signaled to the bailiff. 2 officers came forward. Julian was handcuffed right there in the courtroom. He looked at me as they led him away, his expression a mix of rage and disbelief. I looked back at him and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just the cold reality that the man I'd married had been willing to destroy me financially and blame it on imaginary criminals rather than share assets in a divorce. Austin transferred the cryptocurrency that afternoon, from Julian's wallet to a new wallet Monica had set up in my name. Every coin, every fraction. I watched the transaction go through on the blockchain, watched our savings come back from the dead. Julian was released from custody 6 hours later once the transfer was confirmed. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks after that. I got the cryptocurrency. Julian got nothing except a criminal investigation that eventually resulted in wire fraud charges. He took a plea deal, probation, restitution for the legal fees I'd incurred, a permanent record. His fintech career was over. No company in that industry would hire him after he'd been convicted of cryptocurrency fraud. Last I heard, he was working in sales somewhere, far from anything involving blockchain or finance. I still have the Bitcoin. I haven't sold it. The value has gone up, then down, then up again. It's worth close to $300,000 now. I keep it in a hardware wallet, but not a ledger. I bought a different brand. And I keep the recovery phrase in a safe deposit box, not in my home. I learned some things from Julian, just not the lessons he thought he was teaching. Austin asks me sometimes if I regret how public the courtroom confrontation became. The story made local news: cryptocurrency fraud, divorce court drama, real-time blockchain demonstration. It was too good for reporters to ignore. I tell him I don't regret it, because Julian was counting on the fact that cryptocurrency is confusing to most people, that blockchain sounds technical and intimidating, that judges and lawyers wouldn't understand it well enough to call his bluff. He was counting on me being too overwhelmed or too trusting to question the story. He almost got away with it. But he didn't account for my brother, didn't think about the fact that I had someone in my corner who actually understood the technology, who could translate blockchain from intimidating jargon into simple truth. Julian moved the money.
Julian controlled the wallet. Julian lied. Monica tells people about the case now, in seminars about asset concealment in divorce. She says cryptocurrency has created new opportunities for people to hide money from their spouses, that hardware wallets are the new offshore accounts, that without expert help, most people would never find coins that someone was determined to hide. She uses our case as the example of how to fight back. Document everything, find an expert, follow the blockchain, force the truth into the open. I've thought a lot about the moment Julian pulled the ledger from his pocket, the look on his face. He could have kept denying it, could have let the judge hold him in contempt, could have gone to jail rather than admit what he'd done, but he didn't. Because at the end of the day, Julian wasn't brave enough to face real consequences. He was only brave enough to steal from someone who loved him. I wonder if he ever thinks about that Tuesday in March, the night he came home and told me we'd been hacked, the performance he gave, the tears, the shaking hands. Did he practice it? Did he plan exactly what he'd say? Or did it come naturally, lying to someone who trusted him completely? I'll never know. And I don't need to, because the blockchain doesn't lie. The transactions don't perform. The evidence doesn't pretend. Julian thought he could hide behind technology, behind the complexity of cryptocurrency, behind the assumption that I wouldn't understand or wouldn't investigate. He thought he could make our money disappear and I'd just accept it, just grieve and move on and let him keep everything when the divorce came. He was wrong. I didn't let him disappear our future. I dragged it back into the light, in a courtroom, in real time, with a judge watching and a blockchain that couldn't be argued with. And when they walked him out in handcuffs, when he looked at me with that expression of betrayed disbelief, I realized something. He wasn't shocked that I'd caught him. He was shocked that I'd fought back, that I'd refused to be the confused, overwhelmed victim he needed me to be. I didn't destroy Julian's career. I just stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own choices. The blockchain did the rest. One immutable, permanent, public ledger. Every transaction timestamped and traceable. Every lie preserved forever in code. Julian wanted our Bitcoin to vanish. Instead, it became the evidence that nothing really disappears. Not money, not truth, not the record of what someone did when they thought no one was watching.
You've just stepped into her revenge side, where every wound finds its justice, and every silence ends with truth. If her story struck a chord, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Another secret waits in the next video. See how her revenge begins.